Thank you, sweetie. First thing that we have to do is close the floodgates. And then there's a lot more details on my website about that. Now, I also favor changing, if necessary, the Constitution so that at least one parent must be proven to be a U.S. citizen. Okay? We have situations, I've had doctors tell me, a doctor who did his internship in El Paso, he said there was a courtyard there at this particular hospital where women would come across the border just as they were, you know, at the end of their term, and literally just kind of wait in the courtyard for their water to break. And then walk in the hospital, have their baby, have an American citizen who now was their anchor baby and their ticket to all kind of benefits. With regard to entitlements, we must have, especially reform of, I call them entitlements that deal with welfare for able-bodied, working-age people like me. All right? As the owner of a funeral home, I will tell you, it gets on my last nerve when people drive up in a fancy car, dressed to the nines, with jewelry out the wazoo, say, Mr. Addison, we need some help to bury Mama because we're on government assistance. Okay, now, the old devil's sitting right here, and it's all I can do to remember how my Christian mama raised me, you see, to not say something that would not make me a good ambassador for Christ, okay? And that's tough. Because what I'd like to say is not very pleasant. You see, my daddy wasn't a Christian, so I've got a lot of baggage up here that I try to keep back there in the delete department, okay? And another thing that gets on my last nerve is when you go to H-E-B or Kroger or whatever, and the buggy in front of you's got all kind of good-looking cuts of meat. You know, T-bones and ribeyes and nice roast and you name it. And you think, wow, they must be doing pretty well. And then they whip out that Lone Star card, you know. So what I am proposing that we do is drastically tighten up the criteria before an able-bodied, working-age person can qualify for government assistance. Because right now, we as an older generation, and I'm talking to myself, thankfully my kids are not this way. My kids both have good work ethics. Both my kids have good, strong work ethics. But there's a generation of parents who fouled up. They gave everything to their kids. They didn't say, you know, I'm not going to buy that for you. If you want it, you get a job. And so we have a lot of people that are younger that have a fairly poor work ethic. And so they say, well, yeah, I could get that $8 an hour job, but that's hard work. I come home sweaty and dirty every day. Well, why would I want that when I can go down here and get rent subsidies, food stamps, Medicaid? Well, who would want to work?
Don't forget the trip to Mexico to get a little marijuana or something to sell when they want something extra, like those fancy trucks and those Cadillac SUVs.
We could talk on and on, couldn't we? But this is what I propose to get federal spending under control, is that we tighten up the criteria for these welfare programs by at least 1/3 over a 4-year period of time. Now, let me tell you why I wouldn't do it overnight. Because just as sure as we whack 1/3 of the people on welfare overnight, in 2014, every one of these people getting that government check would come out of the woodwork in droves, and every conservative across the nation would be defeated. And it would take, I'm afraid, decades before we got back in power. Because see, right now, a lot of those people, they're pretty content. They got that government check, don't want to rock the boat, so a lot of them don't vote. And so I would, the first year out of every 100 people, the first year I would whack 8 or 9. And then another 8 or 9. Until after 4 years, we're down to 66. Okay?
Well, if you were in Texas, if you eliminated the illegals that get all these services, you wouldn't have to worry about it.
That's right. Now let me go to step 2 of my entitlement reform. Medicaid. Medicaid is an entitlement. It's all, I mean, if you qualify, you are entitled. So what I would do is I would repeal the entitlement aspect of Medicaid. And I would then make it a block grant program and let the states decide how they want to handle it, okay? A big part of what I plan to talk about tonight is not defending the Constitution, but restoring the Constitution, okay? I'm going to use a simple analogy. When I'm 50 years old, 48 years ago, Lyndon Johnson became president and put the federal government on steroids. Well, unfortunately, presidents of both parties have contributed to its growth. And so 50 years ago, my liberties, let's just say, were represented by this sheet of paper. Okay, that's how big of an area, let's just say, they're represented. Well, I'm very sincere when I feel like today, because of agencies like the EPA, etc., that my liberties have been reduced to about this size. And so I'm going to talk in a few minutes about restoring our liberties. But first I want to deal with this Medicaid issue of entitlement. What I would do is I would repeal the entitlement aspect of it. I would block grant the money to the states with a note from the federal government that says basically the following. Attached is your share of federal Medicaid money. After verifying citizenship, use it as you deem appropriate to take care of your indigent citizens. Because you know what? Y'all have, I don't know who it is because I can't keep it memorized, but y'all have a state rep and you have a state senator. And if you don't like the way they regulate and do things, you can fire them, can't you? But you can't fire a federal bureaucrat. Well, but if enough people get bent out of shape, they will get fired. But you cannot, I think we're all on the same page with agreement, you cannot fire a federal bureaucrat. We the people cannot. So that's an example. Now if you go to my website, you'll see specific details about Social Security and Medicare. But I want to move on to the main thing I'd like to talk about tonight, which is the economy. Now, there are three things I believe that we must do to get this economy going again. Until we do them, we're just barely touching the hem of the garment, in my opinion. The first thing is kind of a no-brainer. I believe that Mr. Obama needs to seek other employment in January 2013, which means that we must fire him in November of 2012, okay? That's step one. If we don't do that as a nation, folks, you better go buy a pretty good surplus of beans and cornbread, because the chickens, if you look on the horizon, you can see the chickens coming home to roost. Now, right now, I can't tell if they're bannies or white leghorns, but I can see them on the horizon, and they are heading home to roost. We cannot continue to spend $1.5 trillion more per year than we're taking in. Now, so that's step one. But first, let me describe our financial house in everyday family language, okay? Let's just say that your income, I'm just going to have all of you put yourself in this situation. Your annual income is $22,000. That's not much, but bear with me. $22,000. Now the problem is you're spending $38,000. It's compounded by the fact that you have $144,000 on credit cards. And last December, remember last December is when the federal government was going to shut down unless they come, okay. Last December, after going to counseling for your overspending problem, you agreed to cut your yearly spending by $385. So let's go back over those numbers again. Your income is $22,000. Your expenses are $38,000. You're spending $38,000. You've got $144,000 on your credit cards, and last December you agreed to cut your annual spending by $385. Now, let me explain those numbers. The $22,000 represents federal revenue of $2.2 trillion. You see, I just whacked off most of the zeros. The $38,000 represents federal expenditures of $3.8 trillion, or $3.8 trillion. The $144,000 in credit card debt is the national debt, which is $14.4 trillion. And the $385 that you agreed to cut your spending by last December was $38.5 billion. Okay? That sums up our financial problem. So, having said that, right now, and I can tell you this as a businessman, now let me stop and just, if you don't hear anything else tonight, please listen to this. I say this on behalf of myself, my children, and my granddaughter who will be born next month. Lainey's her name, okay? Whoever you vote for in the United Folks, remember in 1992 when Bill Clinton was running for president, remember his campaign slogan? It's the economy, stupid? Now, Mama taught me not to say stupid too much. I usually try to say that when I describe federal regulations and things like that, okay? But do you remember that slogan? It's the economy, stupid?